Hello, everyone. I am here. I'm Penny Morgan. I'm going to give you a shorter version of the October 12th presentation that we had in person. And I'm going to focus on the part which was about tips for establishing native plants in the fall. So we'll start here with just a brief introduction. So I am a local native plant enthusiast and also president of the Native Plant Society chapter, local chapter, the White Pine chapter. And I did this with Debbie Kadlec, who I greatly appreciate. She has a lot of knowledge to share. And we did this as a discussion about the Homegrown National Park idea, and we had such a great, lively discussion in person. It was wonderful, but not an easy thing to capture for a recording. And so I am recording this a few days later and focusing just on the part about establishing native plants. So I hope that you will take a look at the PDF of this presentation, because it has our notes and quite a bit of information and these wonderful pictures from Debbie Kadlec's yard, a mix of native plants and other plants. And one of the goals was to help you convert hope into action around native plants. And so I'm going to start there with a quick story about why I'm doing this presentation this fall now. So I really wanted to see and have put a lot of effort into a memorial planting in memory of Marjorie Stage at Idler's Rest. We have 4 areas along the trails in Idler's Rest in the orchard part on the Meadowview and Mountain View trails. And I initially was going to do this in the spring and early summer. And I got a lot of plants together, donated from members and from the native plant sale in May. And then the reality of trying to get everything ready to go, the site preparation and the permissions to, thank you, Palouse Land Trust, for giving us permission to do this, support from many of the other members in terms of the funds needed to make this happen. And thank you to all those who said, Penny, don't do it in the spring. Try it instead in the fall. Well, how do you get plants to establish in the fall? What do you do with them all summer long? And so I learned. And so I want to share with you what I learned. They mainly discouraged me because of needing to carry water some distance up those little trails. And I can tell you, after many gallons of water carried up the trails, it's a long ways, and it would have been too much to do in the summer. So I'm glad, and here I am to tell you a little bit about how I converted my hope and enthusiasm into action with the help of lots of volunteers. There's a couple of different things that I learned. One of them is establishing native plants in the fall from transplants, which is mainly what I did. But then I'll also talk about establishing native plants in the fall from seeds, which we did some as well. So let's start here with transplants. So there's still, even in the fall, lots of opportunities, not as many as the spring and summer, but opportunities to get plants at local nurseries. You may find them in local yards, your yard, your neighbors, or gardens. It might be that you want to, you've taken out some of your lawn, put native plants there, and suddenly you realize, oh, I want to go do some more. Well, you can go and look underneath the plant where the plants have grown successfully. Maybe you're going to find some large clumps that could be divided to give you some new individuals. That's what this looks like over in my picture here. This is prairie smoke, can be divided really readily. In fact, it's much better to divide it. It's got these shallow rhizomes and with little plants coming up, and you can take a clump, break it apart, and plant that. And it does it much more successfully, as many species do, than establishing from seed. So you might be able to divide large clumps. Maybe you've got some native iris. Maybe you've got some native grass. If you can divide, or alum root, maybe you can divide some of those and transplant them. You might also be able to find small seedlings. I really encourage you to look for plants. They may look really small, with just a few leaves. A lot of native plants take the first few years to grow deep taproots before really putting on very many leaves. And so that you are much more likely to successfully transplant them if they don't have a lot of leaves and they don't yet have that big taproot that you have to dig out if they're going to be able to get it to transplant successfully. So some things to consider: move the plants when you transplant them. Take some of the soil, whether you're taking them from clumps or from seedlings. Take some of the soil where they're growing with them and plant it in the hole with them, and that will help help them make the transition, because it'll help protect the roots and protect them from air while you're moving them. But it will also help move maybe some of the mycorrhiza or other things that they need. In the fall, the biggest concern that a lot of people raise is that soils need to be warm enough for root growth after transplanting. And a lot of folks that I talked to said you can keep doing this well into November because the soils get warm enough for root growth after transplanting. You're going to be more successful if you do it in the middle of October than much later. We waited until middle October for the Marjorie stage plantings, which is great because then there had been fall rains that softened the soil and made it a lot easier for digging. If you wait too long, frost heaving is a risk, and that's what happens when you take a plant's roots and soils and put them in the hole, and if there's a lot of freezing and thawing before those roots have really extended into the surrounding soil and help to anchor, the soil might expand and the plant may get squeezed out of the soil. Mulch will really help a lot with that, and we have some problems with it, especially in heavy clay soil, but on many of our sites it's not a big issue. But mulching, we put in about 1 inch of bark around about a foot around each of the plants, so a foot in diameter around each plant to help reduce frost heaving. Be careful when you transplant, whether they're seedlings or whether they're part of a clump. You don't want to expose the roots to air because they rapidly die, and if they dry out. And you want to make sure the soil is packed pretty firmly around the roots, and especially you don't want air pockets. And you also want to make sure that you don't have a J root, so that take a look at how the plant roots are distributed and try and make them the same when you transplant them, and including how deep they are relative to the surrounding soil. When you've got a hole for the plant, deep water it first, let it soak in, then put the plant and the soil in, and then water it some more, and watch to see that you don't get air bubbles coming out, which would suggest that you haven't packed the soil well enough around the roots. Good luck. That's exciting. So is growing them from seed. And the cool thing about growing them from seed is you can sow the seed in the fall, and then nature will handle some of the stratification. So let me start there in the middle of the slide with stratifying seed for growing in the spring. So when plants the seeds are mature, they're not ready to germinate. Nature waits for them. They continue to mature or be prepared by going through the dark, cool, moist winter. So we either need to put the seeds out where they can go through that same process naturally, or you'll have to provide a dark, cool, and a little moist, but don't induce mold place for those seeds to establish. sorry, for those seeds to stratify. The requirements vary by species. Some of them take 20 or 100 days. We have a great table about stratification requirements developed by local experts, Trish Heekin, Brenda Earhart, building on Dave Skinner's really great work on what plants the native Palouse prairie plants need in terms of stratification. That documents are available on our webpage. Okay, so once you get the seed, let's talk about how let's talk about seed sources. Consider getting seed from commercial growers. That's a really great thing. It not only supports local businesses, but you'll know what you're getting. You'll know the germination rate, and they'll already be cleaned. If you collect it yourself, there's going to be a lot of other material mixed in with the seed that's going to make it harder for the seed to get a good seed to soil contact. You can see that in these geraniums on the in the picture there. Those little curlicues, if that's broken off, the seed's going to have a more success of being up against the soil, which is what it needs to get the water. If you don't get them from commercial growers, which I highly recommend, you could also collect seed from your own plants or your neighbor's yard. Then it's up to you to do the identification to make sure you're getting what you want. And but it's fun. You have to keep an eye on them, because the easiest way to know where the seeds are ready is to just carefully shake the plant with the seed, hold the seed pods over your hand so you could catch them. And if the seeds naturally fall out very easily, they're ready. Otherwise, wait. And they may not be ready. They probably won't be ready for all the plants at the same time. So you may have to make multiple trips out into your yard or to collect seed. You can go in the wild as well. We tend to discourage this for a variety of reasons, but the main thing is if you go in the wild, leave lots. Only collect 5% of the seed from any given plant and 5% of all the plants. And there's a good reason for that, and that's that nature is generous with her seeds, and it has to be, because there's so many insects and birds that depend on those seeds for a food source. They eat them. So if 80 to 90% of most of the seeds that are produced get eaten by critters, if we take them, then there's less for those natural critters to survive, and they're important in our ecosystems. We also really strongly discourage collecting, especially in prairie remnants, due to concerns about introducing weeds as we walk in with maybe weeds on our pants or our feet, but also disturbing and making a little bare soil where those weeds can get established. And that's a major threat to the remaining prairie remnants, which are very precious because they're so small and widely and far apart. And there's less than 1% of our native Palouse prairie available currently in remnants. So if you do get seeds, whatever, you might consider making a voucher garden. If you get seeds, then from a few seeds, you can get a few plants, and from a few plants, you can get many seeds. And so it's a great source for seeds and for transplants. And you'll often know what plants look like as seedlings and small plants if your big plants foster little ones around them. And that's good because it can help you differentiate between weeds and the plants that you want. When you do sow the seeds, be generous. Think about doing nature. Be generous with spreading lots of seed, not only to support the critters that are out there, but making sure that at least some of them will germinate, and knowing that they don't all germinate each year. So be generous with how much seed you put out, and then try and figure out ways to get good seed to soil contact. You could sow before snow or before heavy rain. That helps wash the seed down into little cracks and or cover the seeds with just a little bit of soil to help hide them from the at least some of them from the insects and birds. You could cover them with soil, but use only a very, very thin layer. Again, think about what happens in soil and in nature. You don't get a huge deep layer of soil on top of the seeds. You can also rake them into the soil, either physically with a rake or using your feet to kind of scuff them into the soil. But those are some things I learned. Again, I wish you luck. And I hope that you'll each look around and find and learn from asking questions and being observant. So some of the things that are always important, Debbie Kadlec is just great about this particular thing. Be sure that where you put those plants, they're going to be successful, that you've thought about the kind of site. What kind of soils do they need? What kind of soils do you have? Do you have the sun they need or the shade that you need? Do you have the moisture that they need? Because you want them to be successful. You want them to thrive. And then certainly native plants, one of the advantages of native plants is that they're certainly beautiful and they add biodiversity. And that's really exciting to see at the Marjorie stage planting, when I think it's going to be cool. But they're going to need some help in that first growing season when they're trying to establish as seedlings. And if you want them to really thrive and look beautiful, you may also need to give them a little bit of supplemental water. It's easy to water too much. So, but you may need to give them a little supplemental water in the especially long, dry, very warm periods. And I love this idea. Be sure to plant, if you can, 3 to 5 individual plants or more in a clump. And as just little seedlings, they're going to not look like they're in a clump. But put them close enough together and they can help each other grow, and they will be able to they will be more attractive to us and to our eyes, and also more attractive to pollinators. It's more efficient for the pollinators to forage and spread pollen when they can find one plant and then find many others around them that spread the pollen between them. So you might say, well, where am I going to find these plants and expertise? Reach out to the White Pine chapter members. We have information on our website, a lot of expertise. Come to the Native Plant Sale every spring. Palouse Prairie Foundation also has a lot of information on their website. They have these cool pollinator kits, which are collections of perfect for beginning, maybe creating a little pocket garden for pollinators in your yard. Conservation districts and local nurseries are great sources. Our White Pine chapter sells a lot of plants that we buy from local nurseries such as Pleasant Hill Farms in Troy, Plants of the Wild in Tico, Twin Peaks in McCall, Plant Natives Nursery in Lewiston, and then we highly recommend Fiddler's Ridge in Potlatch, and the Wildlife Habitat Nursery in Princeton. And of course, there's many others around. And then don't be shy about looking around and see if you can take a few seeds or seedlings from other yards of your friends. Ask permission. Rose Creek Native Seed Farms has seed. I do recommend this native plant finder that Ptolemy recommends, but be a little careful. It's cool because you can put in your zip code and it'll tell you which native plants could have been found there. And most important, it tells you which ones would support a lot of butterflies and other pollinators. However, it's not always absolutely great. It has some non-natives on there, and it doesn't tell you which ones are going to grow on what kind of site. So which ones are going to be really fit for your yard. Some are better in forest, some are better in the open, some are the better. So just buyer beware on that one. With that, thank you. Be happy to answer any questions that you have. Debbie Kadlec, her business is Serenity Garden Design, and she does landscape design, and these pictures are from her yard. And what I like about her yard is that she has thoughtfully figured out, I want to have some natives, but I want to mix them with some non-natives. So you don't, if you're thinking about trying to put more natives in, your yard doesn't have to be 100% native. Or it can be if you like it that way. So we are doing in part of our yard. So thank you for that, and good luck.